Most people know that documentaries are a genre of film in which, according to Google, is a film, television, or radio program that provides a factual report on a particular subject. Bill Nichols, a Swedish film critic and theoretician, wrote that every film is a documentary, even the most whimsical of fictions gives evidence of the culture that produced it. The earliest documentaries would be considered for some to be the earliest recordings of film, anything between 1895 to 1920 that depicted current events without any creative input. The first documentaries in history can be the Lumiere brothers' films such as Employees Leaving the Lumiere Factory, but others would defend this argument by saying that the very first documentary is Nanook of the North, made in 1922, documenting the harsh life of Canadian Inuit Eskimos living in the Arctic. There was some controversy on whether or not the film might have been staged, which in turn defeats its status of documentary. After making Nanook of the North, Robert Flaherty made a similar film called Moana, which was less successful, but British filmmaker John Grierson reviewed his work as having documentary value. For the first time in history, the word documentary was attributed to a film. To be able to make a documentary, it is best to study them first, and the first step into doing so would be to determine their mode. There are separate modes of documentary, and according to the book Introduction to Documentary, there are 6. We first start with poetic. The poetic mode puts forth mood and tone, much more than a transfer of knowledge. It sacrifices most conventional forms of editing and avoids centering itself around a specific location to concentrate on juxtaposition and rhythm. Our Daily Bread, made in 2006, is a great example of a poetic documentary. Opposite of poetic, we have expository documentaries, which use the voice of God narration to talk directly to the audience, and uses text and archival footage to put together an argument about a particular subject, a bit like this video. A historical example would be one of the first expository documentaries called Night Mail, made in 1936. Observational filmmaking is very self-explanatory. These types of documentaries follow a particular subject throughout a set time without trying to interfere with it. A great example of this would be the 2001 documentary Children Underground, that follows Romanian children as they live in the communist era of Romania. The filmmakers follow the children and never interfere even if violence breaks out. Participatory filmmaking is when the film is heavily influenced by the interaction between the filmmaker and the subject filmed. Interviews and archival footage are commonly used in this mode. Man with a Movie Camera is a participatory film, maybe one of the first of its kind. This film documented typical daily life in 3 Soviet cities: Moscow, Kiev, Odessa. The reflexive mode, most notably known as a mockumentary, has the filmmaker's presence usually established at the start of the film. What the audience sees is not the absolute truth, but at least a reconstruction in order to send a message to the audience. Law and Disorder, Philadelphia, directed by Louis Theroux, is a great example of the reflexive mode.
Hamilton was saying he booked you 2 weeks ago for possession with intent to distribute. Is that right?
Drugs.
I don't.
Performative documentaries are made to answer the viewer's questions, in a way where the filmmaker displays their opinions and emotions to inspire interest on a particular subject, but still interviewing or investigating in an objective manner. Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine can be classed as a performative documentary. Remember that quote from Professor Nichols? Every film is a documentary, even the most whimsical of fictions. We are seeing more and more documentaries almost go past the line of fiction just to give off a different theme than just those 6 modes. American Animals is an example of a documentary going past the line of truth. Many people, including myself, have debated whether or not it is a documentary, or just simply another biopic. But comparing it to the 6 modes, this film seems to correspond to the reflexive and performative modes, and perhaps something else, something we haven't seen yet. Films are made every day, and websites such as YouTube or even Netflix are pushing the boundaries between what makes a film and what makes a simple home video. There are documentaries out there that are far more interesting and educational than what mainstream media releases, such as the Kurzgesagt videos, or the Explained series released on Netflix, and even iDubbbz's Full Force has millions of views, and for good reason. In conclusion, Documentary filmmaking is a way of expressing or exposing the truth in more than one way. Experts of this practice, such as Dziga Vertov, went as far as to claim that the kino eye, as he called it, could be understood as that which the eye doesn't see, like a microscope or telescope of time, regardless of how documentaries are practiced or experienced. In the end, they will always be factual recordings of an event or era that an audience will look back on.